¿Cómo estás?
¿Qué tal, doctor? Buenas noches. Doctor, voy a comenzar con la saudación. Então, su biografía, no final das preguntas. ¿Bien?
Perfecto.
Bien, doctor. Muy buenas noches. Hoy contamos con la presencia del doctor William Freire, quien es abogado, profesor de Derecho Minero en varios cursos de posgrado. Ha publicado decenas de artículos y ha dictado más de 100 conferencias sobre Derecho Minero en Brasil y en el exterior. Es árbitro de la Cámara de Mediación y Arbitraje Empresarial de Brasil, la CARMAR. Es coordinador del Departamento de Derecho Minero del Instituto de Abogados de Minas de Gerais. Además, es fundador y director del Instituto Brasilero de Derecho Minero del IBDM. Ha publicado más de 10 libros. Hoy tenemos la presencia del doctor, quien nos hablará acerca de la Sección Internacional del Marco Legal Minero en Brasil. Estimado doctor, le cedemos el uso de la palabra.
Gracias. I'm going to speak in English, as I have agreed with the coordination of the seminar. Good evening, everyone, all the participants. First, I would like to thank the lawyer for the invitation to speak in this mining law specialization seminar. This international sector will discuss the Brazilian mining law framework. Greetings to the event organizers and all professors, speakers, and participants who have joined us today. Special thanks to Dr. Fabian Osiris. Special greetings to Dr. Jaime Terrada, who has been teaching mining law courses in Brazil for several years, and my special friend. To begin, it must be affirmed that there is no way to engage in mining activity or other social or economic activity without environmental and social responsibility. It's important to affirm that environmental and social responsibilities are for everyone, not only for mining companies, the government, the society, and the economic sectors. Now, I'm going to present a quick Brazilian mining law framework overview. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. First of all, I'd like to talk to you about Brazilian mining sector by numbers. Because Brazil is a huge country, a continental country, and the mining sector here, I can say that participates in a great value in the economic sector. So it's important to highlight these numbers. In Brazil, it's important to analyze our mining sector as a whole, because it's quite peculiar. We have around 7,000 mining companies in Brazil, 7,000 mining companies, and about 9,000 mines here in the country. However, it's important to say the 200...
Excuse me, sir.
Please.
The PowerPoints are not sharing in the screen.
Let me see what happens. And now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay. We have here in Brazil 7,000.
Maybe if you share again, we can see on our screen.
Let me see here. One moment, please. Let's see what's happening here.
Maybe you can stop sharing and you share again. Now we can see your screen, your full screen.
Okay. Okay.
In this moment, we can see the PowerPoint.
Okay, good.
Yeah, in this moment.
And now?
Now we can see the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I was saying that the mining law sector in Brazil is quite peculiar because we have 7,000 mining companies, but the 200 major mining companies are responsible for 88% of the value of the mining sector. This creates an specific and peculiar characteristic in our mining sector. Therefore, we must deal with different levels of mining companies. International mining companies, medium-sized mining companies, and thousands of minor mining companies. I'd like to give you some numbers considering 2021 figures. For example, mining activity presented in 2021 revenues of $67 billion. It's a huge number. Overall taxes paid at different levels by the mineral sector, $23 billion only in taxes concerning the mining sector. Is a huge number as well. Next one is impressive. Net exports, considering or taking consideration exportation and importation, $52 billion. Is a real impressive number. Next one. In many countries, there is a great discussion about the occupation of the land by mining. And because of that, I brought to you some numbers. In Brazil, and there is a statistic related to this number, mining activities, that is mining, occupying for exploitation or development, occupies only 0.3% of the country. This just one square. If we consider all the main agriculture sector, we'll find around 7% of occupation of the land. We have some numbers. For example, cotton, 0.13%, rice, 0.34%, beans, 0.47%, corn, 1.65%. Soybean is an important factor of revenues, 2.42%. Okay, all of this sums up about around 7%. Okay, and mining, considering only the phase of exploitation or development, occupies 0.3% of the land. So mining is not the land occupation problem here in Brazil, and I suppose anywhere. More numbers, considering Brazilian statistics. If we consider the production in 1 hectare, the value produced in 100 hectare. For example, soybean in 1 hectare produces $563 per hectare. If we consider copper, or nickel, we can find $514 per hectare. It's a huge number. Copper, $3,530 per hectare. So comparing mining and agriculture, we can see the difference of land occupation. Next one. Here in Brazil, it's important to say, we have some kind of interesting characteristics. Mining is considered as a public utility activity. It's an important important legal provision for us. Mining, pursuant to constitutional provisions, must be conducted by all the stakeholders, not only for mining companies, in the national interest. This is a constitutional provision, really important for us as well. For example, mining is not considered as public utility in the United States. Okay, so the United States is a huge country, and they have serious problems with the economic chain in the mining sector. Okay, they have great dependency in strategic minerals from China, for example. Okay, so being a public utility activity is a huge provision that helps the mineral sector a lot. Next one. Mineral resources belong to the country. In Brazil, we say that belongs to the union, right? This is a federal level. And this happens in many countries. When we study the comparative mining law, it's possible to see that is the regular structure around the world. The property of the land does not encompass the mineral substances contained therein. Okay. All countries that have a strong mining sector, such as Brazil, Peru, Chile, Canada, understand that this kind of regulation is better for the country. The same idea with different words, I can say. For example, in Brazil, I said, mineral resources belong to the country. In our case, in the union. But there are many countries that use the same statement with different words. We can find some countries referring to nation, for example, as the owner of the mineral wealth, such as Mexico and Uruguay. In some countries, there is reference to the nation and province's property. Another example, Bolivia Constitution refers to the Bolivian people as the owner of the mineral wealth. Next one, legislative power. In Brazil, the power to legislate on mining and geology is exclusive to the federal level. For this reason, Brazil has just one mining code, and I think this helps a lot. We know that many countries such as Australia and Canada, each province or state has its own mining code. Okay, so the regulation is much more complex than when the country has just one mining code, in my opinion. In contrast, legislation on environmental law is subject to concurrent legislative power between the federal government, the states, and the federal district. So it's easy to perceive that we have different structure considering the legislative power when we analyze the mining regulation and environmental regulation. Totally different, and environmental regulation is much more complex. And I think that is happening in many countries. Here in Brazil, counties or municipalities legislate on local interest matters. Okay, it's a specific regulation that we have in Brazil. The counties or municipalities don't have full power, considering some subjects, including environment. The next one for us. Here, there is a I'm going to summarize the exploration and exploitation regime that we have in Brazil. We don't have just one development regime. We have different regimes depending on the characteristics of the minerals. For example, the main regime here in Brazil is the regime that encompasses the exploration and exploitation phase at just one administrative procedure with two phases. It's the most important exploration and exploitation regime that is responsible for 95% of the mineral production here in the country. The exploration exploitation system. But beside this regime, we have small ones, such as the mineral licensing regime, mainly for substances of immediate use in civil construction, such as rocks, gravel, clay, natural rocks, limestones used in the soil as the soil conditioners. For example, we have a specific regime for this kind of mineral substances. We have as well small-scale mining. In Portuguese, it's quite difficult to translate it. It's permissão de lavra garimpeira for the extraction of certain substances defined by law. The law defines these substances that do their geological formation not depend on mining research, don't depend on the exploration activities. For example, gold and diamond in alluvial, or colluvial forms. We have some mining titles in the mining claim regime. In Portuguese is Manifesto de Mina. And these areas already exist because they were defined in 1934, when we had the transition of the regimes. Because before that, when you have a mining regime called accessão, when the landowner were the owner of the mineral contained in his property. And this was modified in 1934. But now this kind of mining titles are in extinction because they don't happen. They were not granted anymore since 1934. But they are, until now, an important mining title for the mining sector and for many large companies, mining companies. Now, mining companies. In Brazil, there is no restriction concerning the company's capital origin. Nevertheless, only mining companies organized under Brazilian laws, having headquarters and administration in the country, is allowed to develop mining activities here. There are specific rules concerning mining activities into the border zone, that is 150 kilometers parallel to the land border. They understand in the mining code. The Brazilian mining code is from 1967. So at that time, to protect the border was something really important. But today, we have many border areas totally occupied, urbanized. So for some kind of spaces, this doesn't make sense anymore. Next one, financial compensation. I said that the mining sector has contributed with billions of dollars to the government. But besides these general taxes, here in Brazil, taxes is responsible for usually 34% of the company's income. It's a great number. Besides the general taxes, mining companies must pay a financial compensation. We call it CEFEM here in Brazil, to the federal government, which distributes it among the states, counties, and several administrative bodies. The financial compensation base is the gross revenues on sales less taxes levied on sales. It's quite interesting formula. Nowadays, the percentages are general percentage 2%, gold 1.5%, bauxite, manganese, niobium, and salt rock 3%, and iron ore 3.5%, considering this compensation base, gross revenues on sales less taxes levied on sales. There is important information that mining companies paid in 2021 $21 billion just concerning the financial compensation to the federal government. Next one, slide 11. In Brazil, exploration authorizations are granted for a limited period. Here, maximum 3 years with renewal possibility. But mining concession is granted for an unlimited period, just linked to the deposit exhaustion. In my opinion, this is the best system. And then a mining concession with limited period. I understand that most countries have mining concessions with limited period, but there is many countries that still have mining concession using this system. For example, Chile, Argentina, and the state of Queensland in Australia use this unlimited mining concession period. But understand, the other states use the mining concession with the limited period, and the same in Canada. In Brazil, mining rights can be divided, and I'd like to say, there is a study here to adopt the quadricular system similar of what happens in Peru. We are waiting these studies to see if this quadricular system will be implemented. Here in Brazil, as I was saying, mining rights can be divided, transferred, and encumbered. Mining rights can be used to guarantee any kind of obligation, usually mainly for financial obligation. Naturally, it depends on the creditor. If the creditor accepts the mining title as financial guarantee, it's possible to do that here in Brazil. It's quite controversial because I'd like to say that this kind of financial guarantee is not usual. Sometimes for complex financial contracts, but in general, I'd like to say that it's not so common here in the country. Next one, quite interesting information for us. In Brazil, it's possible to mine in a third party's land because mining is considered as a public utility activity. And for this reason, we have mining easements. That's really common here, easy to get. I'd like to say that entering into third parties' land is quite easy here in Brazil. You can get an injunction. You pay the value deserved to the landowner in advance. You prepare this number, use some kind of numbers to pay, and it's quite easy to enter into third parties' land here in Brazil. And mining companies can mine in public lands, public properties, and private and public properties as well. Okay, mining easements is the usual, and we have expropriation as well. Expropriation is not common here because it was provided in a recent law. Okay, but we are expecting some kind of regulations in the next few months, regulating all the procedure for expropriation for mining activities. Many countries have mining easements and expropriation. Well, since the private property deserves constitutional protection here in Brazil, mining companies cannot invade the property, cannot invade the land. For that reason, the landowner or occupier deserves a compensation, deserves some payment for this occupation and for the damage that may be caused. Okay, you cannot simply enter into third-party lands and not considering the payment of the occupation for the damage that mining companies could cause. Next one, nuclear minerals. Nuclear ore exploration, exploitation, beneficiation, enrichment, and sale are carried out under monopoly regime in specific rules. Okay. Again, there is a bill passing in the legislative power, the Congress, trying to make this some flexible. Okay, but today they are only exploited under this kind of monopoly regime. Another interesting information. In Brazil, the landowner where the deposit is located, because when we mine, the mining structure can occupy the land where the mineral deposit is located, but sometimes the company occupies some lands that they don't have the mineral deposits there. They use this land just for the plants and some structures, but not to mine, not for the mining pit. And in Brazil, the landowner where the deposit is located, only him, receives a share of the company's result without investing a cent. It's a quite interesting provision. And depending on the situation, this, if there is a huge mineral deposit, it brings great value to the landowner. The legal base for this landowner share is 50% of the financial compensation paid to the federal government. And for sure, the legal base is the same. the legal is the revenues less taxes levied on sales. So this 50%, the same legal base. It's not too much, but sometimes it brings to the landowner great opportunity to participate in the results of the mining companies. And many times the landowner usually allows the exploration activities in their lands, expecting that the mining company could find something rich, useful in his property. Next one. This is really important. As you may know, we have recently, in less than 5 years, 2 huge accidents. In Mariana, in Brumadinho, there was 2 tailing dam ruptures, and one caused 19 deaths, and in the other one, 270 deaths. It was a huge problem for us, and because of this, the National Congress immediately decided to change the mining law, decided to change the environmental law. And now we have different laws, really strict ones, protecting the environment, concerning regulating mining tailing dams. And unfortunately, we needed that to improve our legislation. Okay? Now I think that we are going a really good path. Let's see what kind of recent changes we had. First, if the title holder practices mining, processing, or storage, or the disposal of tailing in conditions that result in serious damage to the population or to the environment, an administrative process will be initiated for the expiration of the mining title. Okay? We must understand that what should be serious damage. It's not a mathematical or physical concept, but is serious damages concerning the letter of the law. 2, impressive as well. The fine will be up to $200 million, US dollar, $200 million, depending on the seriousness of the infraction. Okay? Another indefinite term, seriousness. 3, the penalty of forfeiture and caducidade of the mining title also applies when there is significant degradation of the environment or water resources, as well as damage to the property of people or communities due to what? Leakage or rupture of mining dam. This is, to us today, a great concern. Due to the fault or intent of the entrepreneur, without prejudice to the imposition of fines and civil and criminal liability of the title holder. When this kind of accident or failure occurs, we have 2 levels of responsibility: administrative, civil, and criminal liabilities, and they are independent. So it's, in Brazil, environmental situations when the mining company doesn't obey the law, does not practice the best agenda for the mining activity, the environmental agenda for mining activity, they are subject to huge possibilities of penalties in these three levels: administrative, civil, and criminal as well. The last but not the least, this picture. I like this picture a lot. This image shows how the local rigidity works. You can't move this church, but you can't move the mineral deposit. And in this case, this is a centenary Roman church in Saxonia, Germany, that was moved to make mining possible. And the most interesting information, with the community support. There is a mining community that depends upon the mining activity. So this community had to decide, okay, if the mining company closes, we must move in because this is the only way to feed our families. So they, in a good way, decided, okay, if this is the situation, it's better to move this centenary Roman church. I like this slide. I like this picture a lot. Okay. Finally, with finishing my presentation, I'd like to thank you all for your attention. And again, I'd like to thank the organizers for the event and greet the professors and all participants. I'll be here if you have any questions. Thank you. Muchas gracias por su atención. Obrigado.
Sí, estimados participantes, les invitamos a hacer las preguntas para que sean desarrolladas por el doctor. Muchas gracias.
I can hear in the chat quite interesting question. Professor, in Brazil, there is a minimum quantity of extraction. No, not in the terms that the mining company must obey a determined number. But when the mining company presents the exploitation application, it defines a reasonable number concerning the situation and the quality of the mineral deposit. And even though there is not a fixed number, he must extract, he must develop a kind of quantity that makes sense for the size, the quality, the market of that deposit. Okay, it's not a kind of rigid number, but I can see that it's not free. I have a mineral exploitation, and I don't mine, or I mine just a small amount, considering the quality of that deposit. That's impossible. That's not possible. By occurring that, that means that the volume of exploitation and sales is totally incompatible with the size and quality and the market for that mining site. The National Mining Agency probably will ask the mining company to justify why he's not mining that amount that he promised in his exploitation plan. Okay, that's how it works here in Brazil. Good. Next one. The question is, a consulta prévia às comunidades nativas próximas à jazida? Oh, yes. Okay. Brazil, in Brazil, we are linked to the OIT 169. So for this reason, we have to provide previous consultation for these traditional communities. And we have a lot here. We have indigenous communities, we have quilombolas here, and this is an important part of the environmental procedure to get the environmental license. Okay, I think that today is a tendency. There is no country that make possible to mine without hearing, without consulting these traditional communities. Next. Do you consider the Brazilian law is similar to Peruvian? I don't know the Peruvian mining system in a level that I can say that I can answer this, but I have been participating in many Peruvian seminars, and I can say that the mineral administrative procedure, the Peruvian administrative procedure, is much better than the Brazilian one, because as far as I know, the first concession in the Peruvian system encompasses the exploitation and exploration phase. They present, they apply this for NGMET and receive this concession for exploration and exploitation, as far as I know. In Brazil, we have a more complicated system. There is an application for exploration consent or exploration authorization. Then there is that phase of the exploration. After that, there is application for mining concession, and it takes too long, 10 years maybe, to get this concession from the National Mining Agency. And always when I have possibility, I advise, pay attention in the Peruvian system, at least in this part. That means the mineral procedure that is better than Brazil's. Concerning the environmental system, I think that is basically the same. Basically the same in Brazil, basically the same in the United States. Everybody complains about the environmental system, and this happens in Brazil as well. Really complex. We can justify this complexity because the environment is important. We need to avoid degradation. It's important to conciliate the environmental protection with the mining activity. So this is, I'd like to say that this happens everywhere. Everybody complains about the environmental system. Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Doctor, essas han sido todas as perguntas. Muito obrigado pela sua apresentação. Em nome do Biloyer, agradecemos, esperamos você em eventos futuros. Muy agradecidos, boa noite.
De nada, buenas noches.
Gracias. Estimados participantes, recordar que hay una siguiente ponencia, comenzará a las 7.